Hello, my name is Roper Kerby. I hope you find this email to be informative and helpful as you uh, as you all get to the point of the 21st, to where you will be deciding what to do in regard to uh, all the correct words. Right? Wow. All right. So let's. It may come as a surprise to some. So I hope I hope you find this helpful. Um, Sometimes this form of medium uh, is more helpful than words on a paper. So perhaps my hopes is that you find this to be helpful, as I will not be venturing to the Capitol. Instead, I will be staying inside where it is safe. So, to some, it may come as a surprise that all right, what we have on what's on the shelves, um, mental health professionals, scientists, people who've spoken about this. It is not the plant that is a synthetically derived and harmful chemical. And so it appears that we have got ourselves into quite the predicament here. And so, again, it may come as a surprise to some that 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 you find me here expressing my concerns in this way. But um, at the legal age of 21, access to a plant is far different than the current circumstances that we have found ourselves in. So, um, unfortunately, I'm here to encourage you to do what you have to do to get that trash off of the shelves. Um, it eats holes in brains. So, here we are. So that's unfortunate. So that's what happens when. Yeah. So here we are. Do what you got to do that. So, with that being said, I'd like to dive into perhaps how we found ourselves here. So, um, I have some points, and I'll try to speed this up for you. There's a man named Joshua who I had the privilege to meet, who was spending 2 years in jail for THC. He had a daughter, a newborn daughter, and a wife, and was sentenced to 2 years because of a vape pen. This was in Canyon, Texas. So stop doing that. Stop hurting people. It's not okay. That's not good. And it certainly is not Christian. So maybe something wackadoodle. Excuse me. I will keep my entertainment at bay here, and hopefully and stick to the information. And hopefully you find this to be as informative as possible, but perhaps something out of Leviticus, but certainly not what we get from the Gospels. There's no way. There's no way that is justifiable, morally, ethically, and politically. So for the remainder of my time here with you, hopefully I'm going to be able to convey some information to you that you find helpful for the 21st. Starting with the claim that we found that we got ourselves into a situation here to where there's chemicals on shelves that friends of mine are able to get that is not the plant that eats holes in brains. So here we are. Do what you got to do. With that being said, let's jump into some things that I'm sure let's move on to. Okay. Let's perhaps do this. So okay, so for starters, your duty as a public representative. Now, I realize that there are no amounts of argumentation that can be made for those who have made the decision to disdain, dislike, or otherwise just not like the plant. So I recognize this, and I would attribute it to a sort of political ideological possession, a sort of ideological, nonsensical, and what I mean by that is technical. What I mean by that is that we are bound in law with facts. So, being as though this particular plant is regarded as a Schedule 1 substance, it has to meet criteria. That criteria being no medicinal value. So that's, in terms of legality here, a lie. So let's say that you were to have the plant in a court of law with eyes looking at it. If you see a Schedule 1 substance, it's not aligned with reality, with fact, with truth, with actuality. So this is how words work. This is how the whole system works. This is how human behavior works. This is how politics works. Everybody has to do this. So this is how businesses work. Everyone else has to do this. Except sometimes we get politically whatever and no longer feel as though we are bound by objective reality. So, no medicinal value. Well, that is absolutely untrue, obviously, because of all of the medicinal use. So that's indisputable whenever something is prescribed as medicine frequently and often. That does not mean that it does not have medicinal value. That is how words work. The second category of a Schedule 1 substance is physical addiction, which there is no such thing. So there is not a physiological addiction. Substances that do have a physical addiction would be nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, etc. However, the marijuana plant does not contain any such. It is not a physiological addiction. What it does is that is dopamine in the brain, which is a pleasure circuitry. So that is what happens when people do things, for example, that they enjoy. So, in the same way that one would attribute a addiction the way it's written. So in the words, there's not a physical addiction. It is not physically addicting. So let's move on from there. But yeah, so the words don't match. And so that's not how things work. That's not how politics works. That's not how anything works. So that's unfortunate. I was a youth minister. One of my youth students named Lonnie Jacob Bell. Inside this document, I will contain the information as a clip note. Lonnie Jacob Bell was harassed by officers who obviously disdained the idea of any sort of mind altering. So they were fueled by that. Completely innocent man, young man, very. So people are getting hurt because of this. He was on the ground with a gun barrel pressed into the cheek of his face with the officer's finger on the trigger. Because of just I'll locate the information within the document. So I would like to believe that this set of argumentation has been heard quite frequently. However, a bit of a reminder, hopefully should never hurt. Unlike alcohol. 50% of violent crimes are attributed to the use of alcohol. So the prohibition or so that's not good. And so there's reasoning. And reasoning is what we are all bound by. Therefore, which would derive in a mathematical faction that the prohibition of alcohol would have much more sustainable use of argumentation against it than THC. 50% of all violent cases. An interesting tidbit of information here that I will also contain within this document, this email, will be information regarding the high priest use of THC, the marijuana plant, which is indisputed, which has been found. This is evidence. This is how words work. This is how things work. So, evidence of THC used throughout the Jewish religion by the high priest. I'll put that information within the email for you, so I'll give you a link for that. I would encourage you to share this email, to share the video contained within the email to all those whom the information would pertain. So what comes to mind is a statement made by Dan Patrick regarding the use of THC, the plant used by individuals, saying that he would not like to see everybody walking around high all the time. Which brings me to perhaps the most essential aspect of this communication between me and all those whom this information would pertain, is that the most important thing within society, within civilization, is the individual sovereignty, is protecting the rights, and as I'm sure you've heard quite frequently, however, I would like to stress that as being quintessential. as literally such a cornerstone, or the truly the essence of any democracy ever, is the protecting the sovereignty of any such individuals at any given point, thus deriving from there with logic proofs, with fact, evident based reasoning from that point forward, that we find ourselves in a time to where if it that is the thing by which, if you do not protect, results if it is not protected, that which I am referring to, the essence of everything that we are built upon, the entire fabric of democracy, the quintessential element of what that it is our own peril. So, I recognize that we have a Second Amendment here. However, to impede upon the individual liberty of another person by preference is essentially an unforgivable sin. It is that is, once that begins, once that starts. Excuse my background. If that is not protected, it results in the downfall of civilizations. What comes to mind by Dan Patrick's sentiment is the and I mean this in the most technical sense, is that of the Canadians regarding both their behavior as well as like upside down Canadians. It is reminiscent of Bill C-16, in which the rights of individuals are stripped away on the basis of preference. It's the sort of extreme liberalism, yet upside down. It is the one thing that you must not do, that the extension of one's preferences outside of logical proofs, outside of law and order and all these structural elements, that the idea of preference to be placed over another person is truly a extremely liberal idea turned upside down. It is, and a tit for tat will occur. For example, I am aware that we have provisions for the Second Amendment here. However, I, for the life of me, cannot understand how guns, by which do murder children on occasion, can be protected at the point that a medicinal plant is not. So, at the points, so if you want to keep your guns, deal with the medicinal plant, because that's the thing, the individual sovereignty. At the point that we place preference over anybody for any reason whatsoever and impede upon sovereignty outside of all the checks and balances of logic and all the things that we have to do, at the point that we do that, we are, in fact, screwed. Cannot do that. However, if the substance in mind is readily accessible to all individuals and then eats holes in their brains, well, you've found yourself in quite the predicament. I would like to drive home the point one more time. It's like Canadians, it's like extreme liberals, It's like Bill C-16. It's like upside down Canadians, is what it's like. We must not impede on the liberty of others. Do not do it. So, finally, to drive home this point, to conclude here, I will hopefully help you in this process by doing this. Do what needs to be done to stop letting chemicals on shelves that are harmful, but with God as my witness, with all the things that I could possibly utter, stop touching people. Stop hiring individuals who work in law enforcement. Mind you, think big picture here. We have China, we have North Korea, we have Russia, we have these places in which this is a universal idea that the sovereignty of a person becomes impeded by others with force. It is so sad, it is so despicable, it is so wrong, it is so unethical, it is so technically, it is so, in all the technicalities, politically unexcusable. Do what you have to do, please and thank you, to let people not take things that are not good for them objectively and stop touching. Stop hurting people. That was my youth student. I was his youth minister. I knew a man named Joshua in jail for 2 years, away from his daughter. Stop touching people. Stop throwing people in jail. Stop that mess. Stop it. Figure out how to, please and thank you, stop doing that. It's so wrong. It's so sad and despicable and wrong. So figure out how to not do that, please. Excuse my background. So I'm pretty sure that this will conclude all the things in which I can think to say that will help and inform all whom it would pertain to in figuring out where to go from here, which would be to not do the things that I just said. And finally conclude by saying that to express if we're talking about preferences here, if we're just gonna like try to put our preferences everywhere, I'm not trying to govern with it, but at the point that we're stating preferences, the use of dopamine by individuals can bring insight and bring immense sympathy and understanding. Quite literally, the way that I can think to explain this with a psychological lens is the reason that it would appear that individuals are dumb or slow that use the substance would be on the basis of something more like more frames per second. So those who use the substance are in fact slowed down physiologically. However, the amount of frames per second that the individual with the dopamine circuitries in the brain, that it can immensely help people. That can literally, it may be frightening to believe that a plant can help, but it does. People, many, many, many people, can make them slow down, think, make them less violent, make them think. It can help. But the chemically altered version that is objectively speaking, which is so important, is not. I hope you have found this helpful. Thank you.